welcome everyone tonight to John Graham and Associates webinar, which will focus on college planning and saving for a college education. My name is Nick Adams, and I am a financial consultant with John Graham and Associates. And as always, we do these monthly webinars to provide value and hopefully answer questions that you may have. I'll start out by saying if you have further questions after tonight's presentation, please contact us at John Graham and Associates to explore the options that we talk about more. And also a little plug for next month on December 7th, we will be doing another webinar, much similar to tonight's, and the topic for December 7th is going to be financial planning for persons with special needs. So if that's a topic that's important to you, please write down that date and look for our emails and registration to come out early in December for that topic. Once again, December 7th, financial planning for persons with special needs. But diving in tonight, once again, thank you for joining us. Very important topic, saving for a college education. In tonight's presentation, we're going to go over the cost of college, what it looks like now, what it could look like in the future, the building blocks to funding college. And if you've worked with us before at John Graham and Associates, we always say financial planning is a process and a balancing act. And certainly planning for your loved one's college is a process and it's a balancing act. And there are a lot of different blocks that go into building that foundation of a savings plan for college for your loved one that we're going to dive into tonight. And our deeper dive is going to take a look at the tax advantage ways to save for college and why tax advantage vehicles put you in a better position than those non-tax advantage vehicles. So we'll dive right in. We know that saving for college is kind of one of those additional added expenses. As families, we have the weight of the world on us with having new children, and as our children grow up, certainly investing in them, whether it's in sports or in education, is a cost to us, and that taxes our income on a yearly basis. Your home, whether your mortgage or rent, is an additional weight on your income, along with your vehicles. Certainly saving for retirement is important in today's world, and that's something that we almost have to do first in reality when it comes to taking care of ourselves before we fund other vehicles. Younger education, the cost of schools today through K through 12 or private schooling, as well as, trying to work in that quality family vacation that we'd all like to take. Every one of these life events or scenarios come from our income, and part of our income goes to that. And so it's no wonder saving for college is a difficult thing to figure out, and how to do it, and how do we afford it. And it's important, and we're thankful that you joined us tonight. So to really understand why it's important to save for college, we kind of look at the costs of college, and we have some general numbers from 2018 and 2019 here. And the reality of those years is a 4-year cost for a public school was on average $21,000 a year for a public school. And if we looked at private school, it's up to $48,000 per year. And that was 2018 and 2019. We do have some projections we could project out in the future now. What might college cost in a few more years? There was a college inflation rate that's traditionally always been set around 5%. So that 4-year public cost from 2018 to 2019, 5 years forward to 2028 and 2029, would cost around $34,000. So once again, an increasing price of college. And we don't say this and put these numbers out to make anyone nervous. We say them to focus on starting saving and having a plan and strategy in place when your children are younger will make it feel like it's less of an impact on your overall plan as they get to college. And that private college number goes from $48,000 to $79,000. And to tell a little personal story, last Saturday, we took my daughter, a 16-year-old daughter, to her first college visit. So my wife and I are going through these exact same thoughts right now of, whoa, we're 2 years out from college. Thankfully, we have saved and have planned for it, but it's also about piecing together different vehicles to pay for it. It's not going to be just one fund. And that's really kind of what this slide is going to go into. When I said it's a balancing act, it really is. And there's a process. And for most of us, college loans or college payments aren't going to be just funded through one vehicle. You can have 529 plans that are specific savings vehicles for college, which we'll talk about soon. You'll have financial aid, which is, I'll go over a few topics on financial aid tonight that we'll talk about. That could be one piece of the puzzle. Income. So on top of not only maybe taking out funds from an investment that you saved for college expenses, paying out of your income every year will be a portion of how you pay for your child's college needs, along with borrowing options. That could range from subsidized loans to unsubsidized loans. On top of that, it could range from an equity loan on your home to pay for a portion of college. And then the one strategy that we probably should use in every situation in life when we're trying to figure out how to fund something or save more is cost cutting. Are there measures that you can do to lower the cost, whether that's attending a community college to start with, or even within your own life, cutting expenses from that trip to Starbucks every day, or that one app on your phone, or Netflix in our house that maybe saves a little bit of money. Okay. And then there's the potential for gifts from grandparents. And we say grandparents here, and it really could be anybody, but as we work with grandparents at John Graham and Associates, we know that they have a focus on, if they can, helping their grandchildren and their children out with college costs. When you say, oh, hey, these are all great ways, but where do we start in planning? Our benchmark that we speak about at our firm with our clients is the aim for saving at least 50% of your child's projected college costs. And that's a great starting point for where you want to be at. When we talk about savings here, we kind of want to illustrate the importance of saving at an early date, even small amounts to large amounts, and the impact that it can have. If you started when your child was young and you started saving $100 a month, by the time of year 15, you would have $29,000 saved, and that's based on an average annual after-tax return rate of 6%. So a fairly conservative number, given what the economy is like. So if you started saving when your child was 3, right around when they reached the age of 18, you would have $29,000 in savings. If you were blessed and fortunate enough to do more, and if you could save $3,000, once again, when your child was 3 and you started saving, $300 per month, $3,000 would be nice, don't get me wrong. $300 per month, right around the time that they hit the age of 18, you would have $87,000 saved up. So that's how big the number can grow when you can start adding more into it. And then for an example of $500 a month savings, you could have with a 6% annual average rate of return around $145,000 in that account, which will be sitting there waiting for your child to go into education or go into school and start using those funds and those savings to cover the cost of education. Tonight, we're really going to dive into some funding options and some savings options that people use frequently, that we use and we help people set up. And some of those overall options are the 529 plans, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And if you're not, then tonight's presentation will help answer some of those questions and discover what they're about. The Coverdale Education Savings Accounts, mutual funds, stocks, and ETFs. Just traditional savings accounts, money market funds, CDs, and Roth Iras. Now tonight, we're going to dive into 3 of those that have the asterisks on the screen. We're going to dive into the 529 plans, the Coverdale Educational Savings Accounts, and the Roth Iras. And why we want to focus on those is simply because they're tax advantage accounts, okay? There's a tax benefit to saving in those programs that really help you grow your savings. And this next illustration really points that out. The top line, the yellowish green line represents investments. If you put $25,000 into an investment that was a tax advantage account and you average a 6% rate of return over 18 years, that account from $25,000 would grow to $71,000 in a tax exempt vehicle. If you took the same $25,000 and invested it into a vehicle that does not have a tax advantage to it, and you let that grow for 18 years, it would total roughly, with a 6% rate of return, once again, these are estimates, $53,525. So you can see the real difference here in saving between a tax advantage vehicle, the things that we talked about, a 529, a Coverdale or a Roth IRA, which we're going to explore soon, and a non-tax advantage vehicle. The tax amount that you will owe is a $17,000 difference. And we go back to those numbers, that's over 50% of the cost of 1 year at a public university. So it's really important to make sure that you're saving in a tax advantage vehicle at an early age. So let's dive in tonight to our first savings option, which is the most popular one in reality. It's a 529 plan. Okay. A 529 plan is a tax advantage college saving vehicle. They're sponsored by the state and the federal government. Okay. And because they're sponsored by the state and federal government, they're tax advantage. You don't have to pay a tax on those accounts that you fund and as they grow. Okay. Within the 529 plans, there's two options. And the first one really is the most used, and that's a college savings plan, which you're going to see here on the left side of the page here. That's an individual investment account. Your contributions go into the plan's pre-established investment portfolio, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Like any investment, the returns are guaranteed. So they're going to go up, they're going to go down. And if invested over the long term, then they should grow. Okay. These plans are offered by nearly every state, and you can join any state's plan. Now, most of the people from the call tonight, if not everybody, is from the state of Illinois. And one of the great things that Illinois does offer, if you usually see a list of things, traditionally Illinois may not be in the top, but Illinois' 529 plan, by many sources, is one of the top 5 529 plans in the United States offered by states. So it's a key point is that Illinois does have a strong 529 program. And the funds out of that college savings plan can be used for tuition, fees, room and board, books, and supplies at any accredited college in the U.S. or abroad. Okay, so a college savings plans, those funds can be used for any accredited college. Now, if we switch over to the right side of our screen, prepaid tuition plans. This is a contract between you and the plan whereby you contribute today, your contributions today cover a certain amount of in-state public college tuition in the future. Okay, so you're prepaying your tuition essentially now, as opposed to investing it. Now, only a few states offer these anymore, so they're really limited. And generally, as I mentioned, they only cover in-state public colleges. There is one private college prepaid plan that is in existence, but traditionally, most people are focusing on the college savings plan, which is what we're going to focus on tonight here. Now, the college savings option of the 529 plan has got a lot of advantages. Okay, anyone can open an account. An account could be a parent, a grandparent, an aunt and uncle. They can open an account and name a beneficiary. That beneficiary could be another family relative. Okay, these plans have really high lifetime contribution limits. So remember that, because when I get to the Coverdale, I'm going to talk about their limited contribution limits. But the 529 plan has high lifetime contribution limits that could be up to $350,000 or more, depending on what state you're in. You control the account funds. So if you open this for your child or your grandchild or your grandchildren, the funds stay in your name and they are listed as a beneficiary. Okay. They have age-based portfolios in them, meaning you can invest in them and based on your beneficiary's age. As the beneficiary gets closer to that college age of 18 years, that age-based portfolio will automatically throughout the years move from more aggressive to more conservative, right? Removing a little bit of risk from the market in your investment, moving to a more conservative as you get closer to college. The biggest benefit or advantage is that it's tax deferred accumulation and tax-free earnings. You get a tax deduction when you contribute to a 529 plan. Okay, those funds grow tax deferred, and as long as they come out for qualified college expenditures, they are tax free when they come out, and that's a huge benefit to the programs. Okay, it also options, as I mentioned, many grandparents want to fund these programs or want to help support their grandchildren or their children through college. There's also an accelerated gifting option. Okay, for it's great tool to be used in estate planning, which we talk about all the time at John Graham and Associates. If an individual or a grandmother or grandparents would like to make a gift, they can actually do a lump sum of $75,000 if it's an individual grandparent, or $150,000 if they're a couple. They could put those funds into a 529 plan, and underneath the gift tax, as long as they're counted as a 5-year contribution, meaning the $15,000 a year can be counted towards that investment, and no other gift is put in the next 5 years, then the gift tax doesn't apply. You've stayed underneath that minimum. So if somebody really wants to have a solid estate plan and they've got a lot of assets and they want to help fund and support their family, a 529 plan is a great option for them to A, support their family, do what's important to them, and B, make a really strong estate planning advantage and not have to pay a gift tax when it's put in appropriately for the loved ones. Now, with everything, there are some limitations, and it's important to understand that there's no perfect plan and no one solution that solves everything. So the limitations of the college savings options in the 529 plan, first and foremost, the returns are not guaranteed. The funds are going to be invested in, and with any investment in securities, you have the risk of loss. So they will go up and they will go down in the market. The key point to keep in mind in here is that we want to be funding these for a long period of time. And if you have time to fund the accounts, it means you also have time to go through market cycles. And as we know, market cycles go up and go down. And as long as you can sustain the funds in there through a market cycle, they will recover from any loss and continue to grow, but none of that is guaranteed. One of the other limitations is the plan's investment portfolios. In a 529, each plan has a limited number of investment portfolios. That's not to say that investment portfolios aren't strong or don't produce, because they certainly do. It's just to say that you cannot design and develop your own custom investment portfolio. There will be options for you to choose from, and once again, the age-dated plans will be an option for that. On top of that, if you want to change your investment options, you're only allowed to do it twice per year with a college savings 529 plan. Once you put the funds in, should you ever take them out, they're not used for a qualified college expense, then those funds are going to count as an income to you. Okay. And there's going to be a 10% penalty on top of that. So it's a key point. When you contribute to this, we want to make sure that it's going to go for a qualified expense in the college realm, so that you do not pay the tax, because once again, the benefit of saving in a tax advantage plan is to lower your taxes. And B, you want to make sure you don't take them out for a non-approved expense and pay a 10% penalty on top of your tax. And then, much like many investment vehicles out there, the plans do have fees and expenses to them that you should be aware of. Another option that we're going to talk about right now is the Coverdale ESA account. And this was more popular before 529 plans. A Coverdale plan only allows you to put a maximum contribution of $2,000 into it. Coverdale plans do qualify for elementary, secondary, and higher educational expenses. One of the different selections with the Coverdale than with the college savings plan is that you do select the investments. So you can invest in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs. You've got a bigger portfolio selection to choose from when you're diving into, where do I want my investments to go? Okay. Once again, these plans are tax advantage, so they have tax-free earnings. If the earnings portion of the Coverdale is withdrawn and used once again for non-educational purchases, it will count towards income tax, and you'll have to pay a 10% penalty. So much like the 529 plan, similar restrictions on this. We want the funds to go in. We want to make sure that they're for college, so that way that you're not penalized when you take the funds out. And with this program, the Coverdale ESAs, there's income limits. So you want to make sure you understand, hey, if I'm a couple, am I underneath that gross income limit of $190,000? If you're over, then you most likely won't be able to contribute. If you're under, then you will be able to contribute. But once again, one of the components of the Coverdale is to make sure you remember that I'm kind of limited in my $2,000 a year contributions. Okay. Now, I've now pulled up on the screen Roth IRAs. And for many of us, you might be sitting there going, a Roth IRA, that's a retirement account for myself. That's not a college fund account. We haven't traditionally thought about it that way, or we've never heard about it as a college savings account. It is a retirement savings vehicle for you. And as you know, with a traditional Roth IRA, if you're younger than 59 and a half, you can't take the funds out. Well, there are certain elements of a Roth IRA that allow you to take the funds out. And one of those is taking your funds out to cover the cost of college. Okay. So if you're younger than 59 and a half and you take funds out of your Roth IRA, you will not have to pay that 10% early distribution penalty as long as it's used for college. So once again, a tax advantage savings vehicle. Make no mistake, this is meant to be your retirement account. Please don't think of draining your retirement account in order to pay for college, especially, if you're like me, 43 years old, a 16-year-old daughter. I'm halfway through my retirement, savings for my retirement. I don't really want to liquidate all this to pay for funding college completely. A small portion of it, absolutely, it might be a strong strategy to use. An additional thing, retirement accounts are not counted as assets in financial aid formulas. Okay, so when you're going out and you're filling FAFSA forms before your child gets into college, although they'll ask you for this information, it's not counted towards financial aid. So having funding options inside of any retirement account is a great place for you to put money that won't hurt your financial aid eligibility. Once again, with a Roth IRA, your annual contribution limit is $6,000. If you're over the age of 50, you have the catch-up provision of $7,000. Okay. Well, similar to the Coverdale, the ability to contribute depends on your income. If you're over 200 and I think it's $9,000 this year, it has been changing, then your income's too high to contribute to a Roth, and you won't be able to do that. The last thing I'll stress is, once again, remember, when you pull funds from your Roth IRA, you're reducing your retirement funds that you've worked hard for and saved for. But certainly, it is an option that you can use a Roth IRA to fund college savings plans for your loved ones. Well, let's talk about a non-tax advantage plan. Traditional investments, investing money in mutual funds and stocks. Obviously, they offer variety and a lot of flexibility. But because there's no tax advantage to them, in the long run, it will cost you potential growth on your investments because of the taxation. And if we could just refer back to the slide I showed earlier, a $25,000 investment with a 6% rate of return for 18 years in a non-tax advantage account grows to $53,000. Okay, but in a tax advantage account, it will grow to $71,000. So once again, a difference of $17,000 in savings. So the bottom line here really is, although you can save for college and use investments that you put into mutual funds and stocks, they don't offer the tax advantage. And so there's a downside to those in the tax burden, the tax cost of funding those that way. Yeah. So a really quick overview of which options offer what. Open to anyone. Anybody can open a 529 plan. Anyone can invest in mutual funds and stocks. There are no contribution limits or high contribution limits in a 529. Let me rephrase that. There are high contribution limits in a 529 plan. And obviously you can buy mutual funds and stocks and fund them any which way you want. So those two plans, those two options really offer a maximum amount of savings availability to you. We talk about full investment control. The 529 doesn't offer that, but the Coverdale, the Roth IRA, and investing in mutual funds and stocks does. You could pick and choose. You could work with an advisor and build your own portfolios. Those offer full control of your investment options. Tax-free earnings. This is the big one that we talked about. Your 529 plans, your Coverdale, and your Roth IRAs, once again, tax-free earnings. They're tax advantage accounts. We look at flexibility. One of the downfalls for a 529 in the Coverdale is that those funds have to go for higher education. If you take them out, you're penalized. Your Roth IRA, your funds, they're flexible. Okay. You don't have to use mutual funds and stocks for a college savings plan. Once again, that's another retirement bucket for funds. And then the real advantage on a Roth IRA, the last one, is it's not counted for financial aid purposes. So when you fill out FAFSA, your 529 plans, any savings you have in a 529 plan or in a Coverdale, or investments in mutual funds. Those are going to go on your FAFSA forms. They're going to count towards expected expenses that you can afford as a family, which we'll talk about here in a few months. Let's take a quick look at a hypothetical situation. Heather and Joe are 43 years old, happen to be my age. They got two children, 7 and 4. So I've got a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So they've got a little bit younger, a little bit longer time horizon to invest. They have a combined income of $155,000, and they've just received a windfall of $26,000. Let's say that's an inheritance from a loved one passing away. And they would like to make monthly contributions to a college fund. Okay. So they could open up a 529 plan and make automatic contributions. You could fund those on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. Okay. They could open up a Coverdale. They meet the income limit, so they are under that threshold. Their income's $155,000. They can fund a Coverdale, which would be up to $2,000 a year, and they can buy and pick and choose their own individual investments. Okay. They can also fund the Roth IRA because they fall underneath those income limits as well. Keep in mind, they can only fund them up to $6,000 a year at their current age. Now, we've mentioned the $26,000 windfall. They could put that all into the 529 plan to start out with. They could move it all in there. It's going to grow tax deferred and come out tax free as long as the funds are put in there and used for college expenses. Now, the question mark really here is around mutual funds and stocks. They could do that, but keep in mind the growth on that plan is going to be taxed. And that's important to remember when you're looking at all these vehicles. So as we get near the end tonight, we talk about how are you going to pay for college? And this is a very common slide that I used earlier this evening. So it's going to come from a lot of different buckets. In that middle bucket at the bottom, financial aid is important. And I'd like to take a few minutes tonight to talk about a very high level, not very deep, but an overview of how financial aid works for you and works for people and how you qualify for it. And there's a couple of different things to talk about. The word financial aid it's actually really broad. It covers a lot of different areas, loans, grants and scholarships, in work studies. Now, keep in mind that loans need to be paid back. Okay, grants and scholarships do not. In a perfect world, you want to maximize grants and scholarships while minimizing loans. Unfortunately, in today's college world, the institutions and the governments have made loans extremely easy to get for a college, which is helping drive up the rate of colleges today and the cost of colleges. So let's talk about the different grants that are available. You've got federal grants based on financial need only. So federal grants, the Pell Grant, and the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, those are financial needs based. They have nothing to do with how your student did well in college, any legacy they are to the university that they might go to. They're needs based. Okay. And then you have college grants, which are based on financial need, but also merit. The reality of it is these college grants are much larger, thousands and thousands of dollars more. Okay, and we talk about merit, whether it's a student athlete, somebody with a 4.4 GPA that's exceeding it, is a phenomenal honor roll student, someone that is engaged in the community. All these things the colleges take into account, and they give out grants for those. So those are the two areas of grants that you can look for. Now, something that's really important for you to know, if you've got a loved one that's near entering college, let's say they're like my daughter at 16, she's only a sophomore, but we started the process a little early. She's got a big list of schools she'd like to consider. And, we're helping her consider them all. And then we'll also help her narrow it down when it comes time in 2 years to make her decision. But all colleges are required by the federal government to have a net price calculator on their website. Okay, so you can log onto their websites and find a net price calculator. And that's a tool that's really going to help you understand what your out-of-pocket expenses could be. It's an estimate for college. Okay, and what you can expect us to pay for that specific college. Okay. So I encourage you to log on to the universities and colleges that you're looking for, look for their net price calculators and run through that simulation to determine, hey, what is the expected family contribution going to be? And really, when I talk about expected family contribution, it's a great segue into talking about how financial aid is determined. Okay. So financial aid pulls together all your income and assets and your family information. It plugs it into federal or institutional methods, right? Their methodology, okay? And that triggers a number called the EFC, okay? The EFC is your expected family contribution, okay? So you take the cost of the college minus your expected family contribution, and that equals your financial needs, your financial aid needs. It's the difference between the cost of the college and how much you're going to be expected to pay out of pocket. Keep in mind, colleges aren't obligated to meet all your needs. If they don't, you're responsible for that portion, in addition to your EFC. So calculating your EFC, your expected family contribution, is important to know, hey, here's probably how much at the minimum I'm going to have to put out for college. And so then you really start deciding which funding options you want to use, or as if you're like us and you're a few years away. Hey, yes, I have a 529 plan for my daughter, but that's not going to cover the whole thing, or I want to use that for all three of my children. So is it going to come from out of pockets? Are my wife and I going to take out an additional loan? What loans are going to be in my daughter's name? Because certainly she's going to bear some of the responsibility for that, and have a little skin in the game, shall we say? So that's important. Some financial aid things to keep in mind: assets that are excluded from consideration, meaning these are assets you have that won't count against you when filling out your financial aid forms. Home equity, the equity of your home, does not count against you. As I mentioned earlier with the Roth IRA, your retirement accounts do not count against you for your financial aid needs. Any annuities that you may have, and then the cash value of life insurance. If you have a whole life policy that builds cash value, that does not count for your financial aid. One of the things I do want to point out is that although your retirement accounts don't count, many universities and financial aid will take into account what you contributed the year prior to submitting your forms. Okay, if you put $6,000 into that Roth, it very well could count for you. Another thing I want to mention is if you're going to pull from your Roth, you want to make sure you do it after January 1st of your child's second year in college, as another benefit for that. Now, in the financial aid, there are many different types of loans: direct loans, parent loans, plus loans, private student loans. The list goes on. And as I mentioned earlier, the government and institutions have made it easier and easier for us to take out loans to pay for our college, our children's college. And what that really has done, it is, number one, help drive up the cost of colleges and universities because they know people have access to funds. But number two, it has put parents and children in really bad debt ratios for themselves by taking out too many loans for college funding. So I want to caution, although there are loans available, you need to be aware to not put yourself in a situation where your retirement plan went from 65 to 75 because of college expenses. And everybody's plan is different. I don't want to make blanket statements, but it's important to be aware of that as you move into it. So how much should you rely on for aid? I always take the action is don't rely too heavily on financial aid. All aid's not created equal. You're not guaranteed to get it. The college doesn't have to give it to you. Focus on your savings. Focus on those pillars that we talked about earlier, whether it's a 529 plan, a Roth IRA. Can you afford to pay for some of the college out of income in the years that your loved one is in college? Is a family member setting up an estate plan and they want to donate and gift in a way that would benefit everyone? That's a win-win-win. So really focus on your savings, focus on your estate plan if you're a grandparent on the meeting tonight, and how you can help your loved ones better prepare for college or better fund college. As I said earlier, it really is a balancing act. It's a process and a balancing act. And so our strategy continues to hold true in our beliefs at John Graham and Associates that financial planning is a process and it's a balancing act. Okay? Keep in mind, there are no loans and grants or scholarships for retirement. If you borrow from your retirement plans, nothing pays them back except for yourself. And don't miss out on years of tax-deferred growth. That's hard to catch up on, especially later in life. Allocate some funds for retirement and some for college. Err first, always on the side of saving for your retirement before you save for college. Pay yourself first before you pay anyone else. And that wraps up tonight's presentation. I want to thank you for joining us. If you like our monthly presentations, please keep registering. Once again, on December 7th, we are going to have a presentation for financial planning for persons with special needs. That's a very important topic. If you have family or friends that you think may benefit from that presentation, please pass along our information. Log on to investwithjga.com to find out more information about it or share it with them. We'd love to have them join us tonight.